right, so Nighthawk Gold Corp is gold exploration in the Northwest Territories, and Gwen actually stole all of the really good points of my presentation. There will be some forward-looking information. This presentation is on our website, so you can read this to put yourself to bed at night. But, you know, as investors, I think Nighthawk's an exciting story that ticks a lot of boxes. So first thing is location. As we mentioned, we're in a Tier 1 jurisdiction, which is the Northwest Territories in Canada. It's a pro-mining government as well as pro-mining First Nations group. Size, we've got a district-scale land position, and we control about 90% of a untapped Archean gold camp. Also looking at resources, we have 2.6 million ounces at our flagship asset, which is the Kolomak Gold Project, so not a bad start for us. Project scale, surrounding Kolomak, we have other deposits and showings, all hosting gold, all hosting good widths, and something that we need to continue to work to truly illustrate the camp-like nature of our land position. Funding, we're $13.1 million cash in the bank at the end of Q1, and as Gwen mentioned, we announced a bought deal financing last week. It was a $9 million bought deal financing, upsized to $11 million, and we hope to close this within the first week of June. This has allowed us to expand our exploration budget. We originally were targeting 25,000 meters of drilling. We're now going to do plus 35,000 meters of drilling, and that's going to be split relatively evenly between Kolomak and these other regional targets I just spoke about. So supportive shareholders and strategic partners, we've got that as well. Northfield Capital is one of the largest shareholders and has funded the company since inception in 2009. And as well, we have partnerships with Kinross Gold and Osisko Royalties. Both are sitting at around 9.9%. And last but certainly not least, the management and board of directors. We're all very well experienced. We've all had success in exploration. And the team is led by Dr. Michael Byron. He's a PhD geologist, and he has a knack for finding overlooked opportunities. And he's done this before in his past. He was a founding member of Aurora Platinum, Lakeshore Gold, and Falco Resources. Taking a closer look at the Northwest Territories, the NWT is most well known for the diamond mines. But there has been gold exploration. Kolomak was actually a past-producing gold mine. There's also the Conan Giant mines. But it also has a lot of large metal endowment, so zinc, iron ore, other resources. And the Northwest Territories government has been very pro-mining. They're not apologetic to be in the resource sector. About 25% of the GDP comes from the resources. They've been looking at infrastructure build. If you look at the Yukon, I'd say the Northwest Territories is probably 10 to 15 years behind what the Yukon has been able to do. So they've got a plan for road building and power to get tapped into the power grid, and this is to support their Indigenous communities as well as the growing resource sector. On the right-hand side of this slide is an inset map that shows our location. We have access in the winter months via an ice road. We also have a 5,000-foot airstrip on site. We usually fly in most of our fuel and supplies. And as you can see at the bottom, there's a dash line there. That's one of the road builds that's looking to be done starting probably before the end of June this year. They'll start construction on that. So they're turning that portion of the ice road into an all-weather road, and we hope that as we continue to advance our projects, we could hope to see all-weather road build to Kolomak. So the Indian Lake Gold Property, like I said, we control about 90% of what's known as the Indian Lake Gold Belt. It's a greenstone belt. And when we first started up there, we only had the Damati Lake project, which is further to the south. And when Dr. Byron went up and looked at it, he looked at all the public information that the GSC had and all the historical exploration that had been done, and he noticed that there was gold hosted north, west, south, east in this camp. Variety of deposit settings, brittle regimes, good grades, good widths. So he said, this is a place I'd like to park myself. I think there's a residual opportunity. You've got a multi-million ounce project that was a past producer in the center. This is definitely a robust gold camp. And he actually likes to say it's almost akin to walking the Abitibi about 100 years ago. So we really have a lot of work left to do, but obviously a lot of room for new discoveries and growth. So we consolidated the land position, culminating with the acquisition of Kolomak in 2012, and that's been our main focus ever since. So as I said, a past producer, they produced about 500,000 ounces until the company went bankrupt in '97. It then went into the hands of the federal government to continue the reclamation work, and we acquired it in 2012. What we saw was a residual opportunity here to add ounces very quickly, but what was a nice surprise to us was the discovery of HighGrade in 2014. One of the things that Royal Oak, who was the past producer, didn't understand was the geological setting. So Kolomak is a differentiated mafic sill sitting in an Archean gold camp. I'm not a geologist, but as it was explained to me, and Gwen likes this analogy as well, but it's very, very simple. So a dike is vertical and a sill is placed horizontal. And in the literature, they were always intermingling the words, the Kolomak sill, the Kolomak dike. As the sill went in, there's a chemical separation that happens. The heavy metals sink to the bottom. The more brittle metals stay at the top. When you're stressed, the brittle metals crack, allows for emplacement of gold fluids. This sill then got tipped up on the side, so the top of the sill where all the gold sits is now on the east. So it's a very vertical linear feature that's easy to hit, whereas we have a 97% hit rate. But it's a differentiated mafic sill sitting in an Archean gold camp. We wanted an analog, a model for exploration. And so we went looking and we found one, and it happened to be one of the most prolific gold camps in the world, which was the Kalgoorlie Gold Camp in Western Australia. They produced about 60 million ounces over the life of that mine, and they're continuing to produce as well. In the early days, though, the goldenite dolerite was known for high grade. Kolomak was never known for high grade. So we looked at what are the controlling factors around where these high-grade zones were, and there seemed to be secondary fault systems coming in, allowing for better pooling of the gold fluids. We looked at that at the Kolomak sill, and in 2014, we drilled that first discovery hole where we hit 52 meters of 7.78 grams per ton. The average grade of the past-producing mine was about 1.6 to 1.8 grams per ton, and it was just north of the pit, so they really didn't know the opportunity that they had, and this was a nice additional upside opportunity for us here at Kolomak, and has now been the focus for us at Kolomak, delineating this high-grade zone. On long section, this is 7 kilometers of the Kolomak sill, and zone 1.5 is just in the center with that white search ellipsoid. So that's what's been our focus, trying to define the geometry and the shape and the plunge of this zone within that sill system. This year, we're looking for resource expansion, very, very shallow drilling, so we're looking to drill further at depth, but also to find additional high-grade zones along this sill. Kolomak also has really good metallurgical recoveries, upwards of 98% with gold, conventional gold standard recoveries. We threw in a heap leach. We're continuing to stress test that. Luckily, Kinross runs a cold weather heap leach up in Alaska at their Fort Knox mine, so they've been giving us some of their knowledge base in order for us to continue to test that going forward. But coming back to the large land position we spoke about and developing Canada's next gold camp, as we like to say, Kolomak is A in the center of this slide, and these are some of our higher priority regional targets. We started with a lot of these targets drilling in 2009 up to 2011, and we didn't go back until 2017 when we had the cash position to really spend meaningful exploration. But this company was put together with the essence that we could truly build a camp where Kolomak could be your central milling facility and be your present, and continue to work these regional exploration targets, which would become your future. So if a senior was looking at this, they would like to sit here and say, I'm not going to be here for the next 5 to 10 years. I could possibly be here for the next 20 to 30 years. And that's the true value of what we're trying to illustrate here. So at the end of 2019, we have some high-level goals, but at Kolomak, as I mentioned, we'd like to breach that 3 million ounce mark on the resources. As well, we want to domain out those high-grade zones so we can really get a sense of what the grade is carrying through them. Obviously, look for more, so delineate additional high-grade zones, which will only further positively impact any project economics. Continue the met work, trust us that heap leach opportunity, because that's another positive that we didn't have until we threw in that bottle roll. So met work is ongoing, and it'll continue to be ongoing as we continue with this project. As well, this year, we're going to kick off an internal scoping study to be able to answer some of those most prominent questions as to how would you really mine this? Are you able to go underground? Are you able to ramp in the pit bottom, maybe to access some of the higher grade that's at depth? All of these things will be answered with this internal scoping study, and depending on the results of that, we could possibly turn that into a PEA in the future. Again, on the regional side, Damati Lake, it's a high-grade banded iron formation. We're looking to produce a maiden resource on that in our next resource update, expected next year. Continue to drill these high-priority regional targets, again, to illustrate the camp-like nature of our land position. And as well, we're spending about $1 million on regional prospecting and mapping. So this is for new discoveries and to prioritize targets that we have to drill-ready status for the next generation. Share structure if you're interested, but as I said, we're fully funded. We're sitting at about, we're range bound at about 36.5 to 38 cents right now. But like I said, I think once we close this financing and we have news flow starting, which will be in the next few weeks, I think we'd like to see a nice little uptick in the share price and some momentum for our shareholders. And I don't have anything extra, so I'll leave my 1 minute to my other presenters. Thank you.